everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm very excited to share with all of you round 2 of my Sephora VIB haul. And also I figured I would make this a trying new makeup video as well, since I've been accumulating a lot of new products over the past month and wanted to just try them on and share them with all of you today. So if you're curious about some of the products I've picked up recently, then just stick around. So first off, let's just talk through some of the items that I hauled recently. So the first 2 items here are both bath products. So basically, since COVID started, I've been getting really into baths just as a way to relax and unwind at the end of the day. And I've never been a big connoisseur of bath products, but with the VIB sale on, I figured I would try out some of the products that Sephora has. So first off, we have these chill pills from Way. And as you guys can see here, these are very, very large. I was not anticipating them to be so big, but essentially I think these are bath bombs with a jasmine and rose scent. And those are 2 of my favorite scents, so I'm really hopeful that this will provide a nice aromatic experience in the bath. And also, since my skin is quite dry, I like that this has a lot of nourishing oils in it, like jojoba oil, hemp oil, and sapphire oil. So I'm hoping that this will also moisturize my skin in the bath. Next up, we have this product from Herbivore. So this is their Coconut Hydrating Milk Bath Soak. So it says here that's rich in vitamin C and also has a special vanilla scent to it. So here's what the bottle looks like. It's basically your pretty standard bath salt looking mixture. And I'm actually not a big bath salt person typically. I haven't really had a lot of experience with them, but I'm really excited to try this out, and hopefully this just kind of elevates my bath game. And in general, if any of you guys have suggestions or recommendations for bath products, please let me know, because I've really been enjoying baths lately and I would really like to get some nice products to put into my bath. So next up, we have these makeup wipes from Kogan Do. So it's basically 10 wipes that are soaked in their cleansing spa water. And I decided to check this out because I'm a big fan of Michelle Wong, and she raved about the cleansing spa water from Kogan Do. And their big bottle is very, very expensive, so I figured trying out this pack of 10 wipes would be a good way to just try out their formula and see if it's something that I'm willing to invest in. So I'm really excited to try these guys out. So I didn't get a ton of makeup products in this latest haul, but I did get a few, so I thought I would talk through these and also put them on my face at the same time. So first off, we have the Urban Decay Eyeshadow Primer Potion. So this is truly an OG makeup favorite of mine. This is the first eyeshadow primer I ever tried out. And I repurchased this a few times before switching over to trying some other eyeshadow primers like the Too Faced and the Hourglass. But recently I've been interested in mixing things up again, so I thought I would pick this up again and see how it compares to those other primers and kind of figure out which one is my favorite. Let's just dab this on my lids. I feel like this formula is a little bit looser than I remember it. Like I remember it being a little bit more creamy, but it has been a while, so I could just be forgetting. And in case you guys want to see a little swatch of it, this is how it looks like on the back of the hand. I do feel like there's a tiny bit of shimmer in this, which is quite interesting. That's definitely different from my Too Faced or my Hourglass. So we'll see if that affects at all how the eyeshadow looks on the lids. So next up, we have 2 brow products from Charlotte Tilbury. So these are in her newest and updated brow formulas. So I've been seeing a ton of ads for these products, and I've also been on the hunt for some new brow products to check out. And so they kind of got me there. So hopefully these products work out for me. First off, I have her Brow Cheat Micro Precision Brow Pencil, and I got this in the shade Dark Brown. So this is how the brow product looks. So in Charlotte's very classic, beautiful rose gold type of packaging. And on one end, there's the pencil, which is very tiny and has a little bit of a teardrop shape to it. And then the other end is a pretty standard looking spoolie brush. So I'd say this definitely doesn't leave very fine strokes despite the relatively small tip. I think because it's kind of flat at the top instead of tapered, you're not going to get a ton of precision, but that's okay. I usually go for more of a diffused pencil look anyway. Okay, so now let's just go in and brush this out. The spoolie is pretty hard and stiff, so if you have very sensitive skin, this might be a little bit scratchy for you. I think the shade is a decent match for me, but does run a little bit warm tone. So I don't know if you guys can see kind of in the front of my brows where it's a little bit sparser. Once I blend it out with the spoolie, you can see a little bit of residual redness there, and that's from the pencil just being kind of blurred out. I do kind of wish this were a bit more cool toned. So here it is in the brows, and overall it seems to be a decent pencil so far. This is my very first impression, so I'll need to play around with this more. I would say though it's definitely not blowing my socks off, especially for the price. And so even though the tip is relatively small, I would say that compared to some other brow products like the Brow Wiz, because it's a little bit creamier, it doesn't actually give you those really precise lines despite how small the tip is. So in that sense, I don't think this will give you the benefits of those really nice fine strokes that you usually get from a really thin brow product, but it does have the con of probably running out pretty quickly. I'm also not a huge fan of the spoolie because it is just kind of harsh, I would say. So it's really good for really brushing out your brows, but it also does kind of scratch up your skin. So let me just give you guys some swatches of this product against some of my other brow products. So here's the Charlotte swatched against some of my other brow products. So the first one over here is the Charlotte Tilbury in dark brown, and then the second one is the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Wiz, also in the shade dark brown. And then we have the Anastasia Beverly Hills Brow Definer in dark brown. And lastly, we have the Hourglass Arch Brow Pencil in soft brunette. So I'd say the Brow Wiz is definitely the thinnest and is also a much harder formula than the Charlotte, which is much creamier. And the Charlotte's probably the second thinnest, and then the Brow Definer is much thicker than that, and the Arch Brow Pencil is the thickest. Of this set, the Charlotte is probably also the deepest and the warmest. So hopefully this is helpful in case you guys have any of these other products. And I'll definitely update you guys as I use this product more and let you know if my impressions change. But definitely for now, I wouldn't say this is a product that I would recommend running out and getting. It's decent, but really nothing to write home about. So next up, we have Charlotte's Legendary Brows Tinted Brow Gel. And I got this in the shade Black Brown. So this is how the tube looks like. And this is actually a pretty large tube for a tinted brow gel. Just for comparison's sake, these are my other tinted brow gels. So you can see this one is the tallest one, and with the exception of the Tom Ford Fiber Brow Gel, it is way bigger than the rest of them. So let's check out what this spoolie looks like. Oh, interesting. Okay. So it's much bigger than the rest of them in terms of the overall tube size, but as you can see, the part that actually has the brow product is much, much smaller than the part that has the handle on it. And the spoolie brush itself is actually super, super small. So I do like that this is a very small brush because I feel like that helps to ensure that you don't accidentally take out too much product, because I hate it when you just get a giant glob of brow mascara on your brows, because that's always not fun to blend out. Alrighty, so far so good with this. There have been a couple little clumps, but they have been really easy to blend out. And this is a fairly dry formula, definitely a lot drier than the other brow mascaras I have. So if you really don't like that feeling of having a wet brow mascara on, then I think this will be a really good option. Alrighty, there we go. So I would say on first impression, I'm definitely liking this product a lot better than the brow pencil. This was really easy to put on despite the fact that it was my first time using it. So I find with brow mascaras, oftentimes when you first open the tube, kind of like with eyelash mascara, it tends to be really wet in the first few coats. And so that can be a little bit messy to work with. But this one was really dry from the get-go, and not dry in the sense of dried out, but dry in the sense that you could easily coat the eyebrows without it looking really wet and clumpy. So now let's do some quick comparisons between this brow mascara and some of my other brow mascaras. So the first one over here is the Charlotte Tilbury Legendary Brows in dark brown. And you can see it's a lot more brown in shade compared to the other ones. And it also has a very thin spoolie compared to the rest. Next, we have the M Cosmetics Micro Fluffing Brow Cream, and this is in the shade Espresso. And this is just a little bit cooler and darker than the other one, but also has a pretty thin spoolie and a bit more of a wet formula. Next, we have the Tom Ford Fiber Brow Gel in the shade Granite. This has a much thicker spoolie and also is much more black in tone. Also, this formula comes with fibers in it, unlike the rest of the formulas. And then last up, we have the Glossier Boy Brow, and this tube is almost completely done, so it's a little bit hard to get a good swatch, but you can see this one is also relatively cool toned compared to the rest. And I think I got this in the dark brown shade, but I don't really see the shade name on the bottle. But this spoolie is also a bit thicker compared to the first two. And then in case you guys are interested in spoolie comparisons, you can see that the M Cosmetics spoolie is a little bit longer, but they're both quite thin. Next, we have the Legendary Brows next to the Tom Ford Fiber Brow Gel, which has a much more triangular, thick spoolie, but a similar length. And finally, we have it next to the Glossier Boy Brow, which also has a much thicker, fatter spoolie in comparison. So those are all the comparisons done. And like I said, I really like this brow mascara, at least upon first impression. And I'm excited to also try this brow mascara by itself because it did really darken and fill in my brows. So I think I might be able to use this without any sort of pencil underneath. So that's it for my Sephora Round 2 VIB haul. I'm really excited for all these products I hauled, and especially I'm really excited to try out all of these new bath products. So now let's transition over from the haul to trying on new makeup. So these are products that I have recently hauled and haven't really gotten a chance to show you guys on camera, so I figured today would be a good opportunity to do so. The first product we have here is Pat McGrath's Sublime Concealer, and I have this in the shade LM10. And I bought this primarily for my under eye area, but today I'm gonna put it on kind of all over my problem spots since I currently have nothing on my face. So I'm kind of gonna use this in lieu of any foundation today. So first off, I just wanted to show you guys the doe foot, and let me also just give you guys a swatch of this product. And now let's just put this in the under eye area and also kind of around my mouth. And then just a little bit for the forehead and down the nose. And I'm just gonna use my finger to blend this out. So if you guys have watched my channel for a while, you know that I am not one to really experiment much with base products. And in fact, most days I basically just use my Glossier Stretch Concealer. And that's been basically my concealer of choice for really the past several years at this point. I haven't really been experimenting very much with concealers. That said, I've been interested in trying something new, and I love Pat McGrath and also have heard great things about both her concealer and her foundation. And so I figured with all the sales she's been having recently, now would be a good opportunity to give her base products a try. And this is not the first time for me trying this concealer. I have used it a few times already, and I would say I've really been enjoying it. I feel like once it blends into the skin, you can't really tell that I have concealer on, and it's definitely a bit thinner on the skin than my Glossier Stretch Concealer. I will say though, it's not as hydrating as that concealer, so especially in the under eye area, I do sometimes feel like this dries my under eyes out ever so slightly, at least in comparison to the Glossier concealer. That said, I do think this formula doesn't settle into the lines as much, so I really do enjoy that. Alrighty, so with the concealer down, let's start getting into today's eye look. So first off, I have here this new blush from Surratt. So this is in their shade Rougeur. And I've been playing around with this a lot as a blush, but today I thought it would be fun to also just see how this looks all over the eyes as an eyeshadow. So first, let me just give you guys a swatch. And as you guys can see in this finger swatch, it is a very pigmented formula. So I have here my classic crease brush from Sonia G, and I'm gonna just go ahead and start packing this on the crease area and see how this works out. So it's definitely quite pigmented, as you guys can tell. For now, I'm gonna keep this more in the transition shade area and then go in with some shimmers all over the lid. This reminds me a lot of the Rose Seduction shade in Divine Rose 2. It also looks a lot like the Danessa Myricks color fix that I bought recently in the shade Desert Rose. So I feel like I've kind of been in a rosy mood of late. Overall, I would say this is blending out decently well, though I definitely feel like it's more pigmented in certain areas than other areas. Alrighty, I think that looks decent as initial eyeshadow color down. So for the rest of this eyeshadow look, I'm going into my Bronze Seduction palette, which is also the latest eyeshadow product that I picked up. So if you haven't checked out my video reviewing this, then definitely check that out. So first I'm gonna take my Wayne Goss number 19 brush into Extreme Aubergine, which I think will be a really nice deepening shade to go with this pink look. So I'm keeping this Extreme Aubergine in the outer third, close to the lash line. And if you watched my Bronze Seduction video, you know that I do find the mattes in this palette slightly tricky to work with, especially Extreme Aubergine. So I'm just trying to layer this very slowly and carefully. Now let me just go back in with some more Rougeur to just kind of blend this color in a little bit better. I do feel like the two shades are not necessarily meshing the best, and that might just be because these are two very different formulas. Of course, this Rougeur one is actually a blush, so that's something to take into account. I would also say, based on my experience using this shade as a blush, it does have almost kind of a satiny, creamy formula to it. So it's not your standard powder formula. And so I was curious how that would interact with eyeshadows. And I do feel like it's creating a little bit of a challenge in terms of meshing well with this much more powdery Extreme Aubergine formula. So now I'm just gonna go in with a finger into this rose gold shade and just spread this all over my lids. And I've really been loving this shade in this palette. It's just so, so beautiful. And if you guys watched my previous video, you know that the first time I bought this palette, I think I got a dud palette, and the rose gold shade in particular was just really, really hard to work with. But now in this new palette, I've found it to be really a standout shade, and I've just loved reaching for this palette and this shade in particular ever since then. It is definitely pretty textured though, so I would definitely recommend either wetting your brush or do what I'm doing right now, which is using your finger to apply it. And now for the lower lash line, I'm first going in with my Wayne Goss number 20 into Rougeur and just sweeping that all over the lower lash line. And now with my smudger 1, I'm gonna go into Extreme Aubergine and just use that in the outer third to further define that lower lash line. And with that same brush, I'm gonna try to pick up some of this rose gold shade and see if I can lay it on there. It is a pretty chunky formula, so these can sometimes be a little bit tough to put on the lower lash line. Okay, I think that's mostly working out, kind of more of a scattered glitter effect. And now for highlight, I'm gonna go into my new Bobbi Brown highlighting powder, and this is in the shade Pink Glow. So let's go ahead and put that in the inner corner. And I tried this on in my previous haul video. I do like this formula a lot. I think it's really, really beautiful and is both a formula that I think you can make look pretty natural or kind of build it up for that shine. I was hoping though that since this was Pink Glow, it would have much more of a pink reflect to it. Whereas I find, at least on my skin, it looks much more just white. And I think that's because my skin is more on the tan side of things. But I do enjoy the Bobbi Brown formula, so I'm glad I tried out this mini. Alrighty, so here's the completed eye look. So now let's get into the cheeks. So I have here my Artist Medium brush, and so I'm just gonna take a little bit of this and lightly dab it on my cheeks. So even though this is my first time trying this product out as an eyeshadow, I have been using this a decent amount recently as a blush. And what I found is that I really love this shade. It's quite pigmented, but it looks really beautiful when sheared out. The formula is still something I'm a little bit on the fence about. So you can see today I'm using this really light and fluffy Artist Medium brush. And that's because I do find that it's a little bit tricky to blend out, especially if you don't have a base product down that is relatively matte. So if, for example, you just have sunscreen or skincare on, or you have a really dewy complexion product, this does have a tendency to kind of stick to those sorts of products. and then it gets a little bit clumpy and can be a little bit hard to blend out from there. I think people really like Surratt blushes because they are supposed to have like a very silky texture to them, and I definitely agree. If you do successfully sheer it out and blend it out, it has such a beautiful finish to it. It's not matte, but it's also not shimmery. It just has a really beautiful light silky reflectivity to it, and it does feel like it really melds well with your skin as the day goes on. It also has decent pigmentation and staying power, so if you're like me and often find that by the end of the day you look like you're not wearing any blush, then the Surratt blush is a good formula from that perspective. But I do just have some problems with it sticking to whatever I have on my face. I do think part of the reason I have that issue is because this is the deepest shade in their collection. So I think if you got one of the lighter shades, then that might be less of an issue, just because you could more easily build up the layers instead of having to kind of pack it on and then sheer it out. But there we go, here's the shade on the cheeks, and I would say this is actually probably the best blend job I've done with this product. So hurrah for Surratt for kind of pulling through in the last moment on camera. Definitely the other times I've used this product this week, it hasn't looked as good. I think maybe marrying this with the Pat McGrath Concealer was a good idea, just because that dries down to be relatively matte. So here we are. And like I said, I really love this shade. I think especially today with it on the eyes as well, it just creates a very nice cohesive look, even though it is quite dramatic given just how pink it is. So before we move on from this blush, I did just want to show you guys some comparison swatches. So the first one on this side is the Surratt blush in Rougeur. And then next up, we have the Danessa Myricks Color Fix in Desert Rose. And you can see this is a very similar shade, just a little bit deeper, and also this is in a cream formula. Next up, we have Rose Seduction from my Divine Rose 2 palette. And this one is definitely a lot more fuchsia and shimmery in comparison to the Rougeur shade. Lastly, we have my M Cosmetics Venetian Rose blush, and this is way more sheer than the other two. So I just wanted to show you guys those comparison swatches in case you have some of these other ones in your collection, because I do feel like all of these give a somewhat similar pinky fuchsia berry look on the cheeks. So now I'm just going to go in with my Artist Small Brush and this Bobbi Brown highlighter and just add that to the tops of my cheekbones. And today I'm going to just forego bronzer since I don't have any new bronzers to try out. And as you guys can hopefully see, this is just a really beautiful shine. It's a little bit light for my skin tones, so I do kind of wish I got one of the deeper shades, but this is the only one they have in their mini, and I wanted to just kind of try out the formula to see how I like it before going in for a full size. So to finish off today's look, I wanted to just go in with some of my relatively new lip products. So today I'm going to pair my Naya lip liner from Natasha Denona from her I Need a Nude lip liner collection, along with my mini Pillow Talk Intense from Charlotte Tilbury. So both of these kind of have a brown undertone to them, so I'm hoping they'll work well together. So here we have the Naya lip liner just around the perimeter of my lips, and you can see it's a nice pinky brown nude lip liner on my lips that's just a few shades deeper than my natural lip color. And this reminded me a lot of the Pillow Talk Intense lip liner, just a little bit more berry toned and a little less deep, so I wanted to try this out with the Pillow Talk Intense lipstick. And here we are with the lipstick, and I think this actually goes really, really well together. I almost feel like this combo actually fits better than the Pillow Talk Intense lipstick combined with the lip cheat, just because these are much more similar to each other in tone. So obviously if you use the Pillow Talk Intense lip cheat, I think it just darkens the look up a lot. But if you want something that's a little bit more mid-tone, I think combining Naya along with this lipstick is a really great combo. And I also think this just goes really, really well with the rosy berry tone that we have on the rest of the face. And so I'm really digging this look. So now for my overall thoughts about these products. So first off, we have the Charlotte Tilbury Brow Cheat. And I would say that I'm not super impressed, at least based on my very first use of this product. So I'll definitely have to keep playing around with it, but for now, it doesn't really seem that much better than any of my other products, whereas it is a little bit more expensive, and the spoolie is pretty harsh on the skin. I am though quite excited about this Legendary Brows Brow Tint. I do think this formula does seem quite special, and that is just a little bit drier and doesn't seem to clump up very much. and it provides a lot of color payoff. So I think today my brows look a little bit intense with the combo of the pencil and this. But going forward, I might just try this on its own and see how that looks. And hopefully by itself, it can give me a really nice filled in brow look. In terms of the eyeshadow primer, I really liked how it initially applied. I will say though, I did notice in the crease of my eyes that the product did seem to mix with the concealer in a way that was pretty patchy. So I did have to kind of wipe off the primer in that area. So I'm not a huge fan of that aspect, but I'll have to keep playing around with this to see how this compares with my Too Faced. I do really like the Pat McGrath concealer though, and I think that this is great even as just like a sheared out layer across most of the face if you kind of want that concealer foundation look. So I'm really a fan of this product, and I think it's also a really good shade match for me personally. Also, I will say using this product along with the Surratt blush has been the best luck I've had so far with this blush, because I was really on the fence about this blush after the first few times I tried it. I did just find that it was sticking to sunscreen, it was sticking to skincare, and just not doing a good job blending out. Whereas today, I think having a very sheer layer of the concealer just gave it a really nice canvas to lay on top of, and I really like how it's looking today. In terms of using this as an eyeshadow, I would say it looks pretty nice overall, and if you want a monochromatic look, I think this is a good way to go. I will say though, for me personally, I did prefer the monochromatic look I got with my Venetian Rose blush. I think that just blended out much better on the lids for a one and done shade. And I also really liked how the Danessa Myricks Color Fix looked for a one and done eyeshadow and blush look. So I think I might just stick to using this as a blush instead, and probably only on days when I either have a face primer or a base product laid down that this can sit nicely on top of. Next up for the Bronze Seduction palette, as I mentioned, I do have a full video on this, so I won't go into a lot of detail today. But I will just say I have been really loving this rose gold shade, and I've been reaching for this palette a lot just for that shade. I'm less of a fan of the mattes in this collection. Basically, these 6 are not my favorite shades from Pat McGrath, but I really love these 4 down here. I've also really been enjoying this Bobbi Brown highlighter. Mostly for the formula, I would say that this shade is probably a little bit light on my skin, so I do kind of feel like it does leave a little bit of a cast on my skin just because it is so light. But that said, the formula is really beautiful, and even though it has a little bit of micro glitter in it, I think that it can still look quite natural once you blend it in, or you can build it up to have more of a blingy highlighter look. Lastly, I really enjoy this combo of the Naya lip liner and the Pat McGrath Pillow Talk Intense. So in terms of this lip liner, it is just so smooth and creamy and really easy to glide onto the lips. Overall, I really love this, and I think it's a very flattering hue as well, because I've been on the search for sort of a brown lip liner to kind of add more contour and dimension to my lips. And I think this one really fits the bill. And it is a really beautiful nude that has some of those pinky brownish undertones to it. So even though if you just swatch it, it might just kind of look like a chocolate brown, I think it has those pinky undertones in it that make it work with a wider variety of different kind of lip colors and also skin tones. And in terms of the Pillow Talk lip products that I've tried recently, so if you guys haven't already checked out my video where I show all of the Pillow Talk Original, Medium, and Intense shades, definitely check that out. But I've been loving the Pillow Talk Intense the most, in part because this one is in her Kissing formula, which I just find to be one of the most comfortable lip formulas. So I've really been enjoying using this product, and I'm glad that it pairs well with the Naya lip liner. So that's it for today's haul and trying out new makeup. Thank you guys so much for joining me today, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. I really appreciate all the support, and I'll catch you guys next time. Bye!